This week on ANN, Adventist leaders react after the largest wildfire in California's history devastates an entire community.
The Church in North America issues a statement after a mass shooting in California.
And a new Center for Digital Evangelism opens in the Philippines.
These stories and more coming up.
Thank you so much for joining us this week.
First in the news, Ted N.C. Wilson recently expressed his sorrow and called for prayers in the wake of devastating wildfires in the U.S. state of California. As of today, more than 48 people are confirmed dead, 130,000 acres have been scorched, thousands of homes have been destroyed, and 13 million are in critical danger.
The Paradise Adventist Church was destroyed, as was part of the Adventist Health-owned Feather River Hospital. We are grateful to note that staff and patients were successfully evacuated. And while the kindergarten through grade 4 section of the Paradise Adventist Academy was also lost, we are thankful also that the rest of the school remains intact.
In his statement, Wilson said, "We want to express our sincere condolences and Christian love to the many people who are facing great loss from the horrific fire in the town of Paradise and other parts of Butte County in Northern California. While we do not yet know the full extent of the damage, our hearts go out to all who are affected by this calamity."
Wilson concluded his statement saying, "Living in this sinful world full of unexpected disasters, we hold in our hearts God's promise that very soon we will live forever in the new earth, free from sin and disasters. Jesus is coming soon. I call on Seventh-day Adventists worldwide to pray for the recovery and resettlement of the thousands who have faced this tragedy. As you see people around you in need, let's follow Christ's ministry of helping people physically, mentally, socially, and spiritually."
The Seventh-day Adventist Church in North America, along with the Pacific Union Conference and Southern California Conference, offered their condolences after a gunman killed 13 in Thousand Oaks, California last week. Their statement read, "Our hearts are shattered for those who lost family and friends last night and for those who will suffer greatly as a result of this senseless violence. As a family of faith, we pray for healing and for all who have been affected." The statement went on to call on religious and government leaders to help facilitate difficult conversations about how to address the violence impacting the country. The statement continues, "As a faith community that convenes in public worship and service, we call on our national and local leaders to do better at keeping the rights of individuals secure by ending the threat that weapons of mass murder pose to all. We believe that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. May this be true for all those grieving and saddened at this time of loss." To read the full statement, visit nadadventist.org.
In line with Adventist World Radio's, or AWR's, continuous effort to share the gospel with unreached people groups, the Southern Asia Pacific region of the Seventh-day Adventist Church inaugurated the first ever AWR Center for Digital Evangelism in the Philippines. The new Center for Digital Evangelism will connect to radio contacts, leading them to Jesus through Bible studies and online evangelism. The last step will be leading them to baptism and discipleship. As more centers are established in other regions of the world, AWR seeks to partner with Adventist regional offices and institutions to advance the growth of the church's online influence. It is also the objective of this center to utilize social media as an additional tool for evangelism. Social media sites like Facebook, WhatsApp, YouTube, Instagram, and more are some of the avenues through which digital evangelists can reach out to a huge population within this existential space. Citing the huge number of calls and text messages received daily through ongoing radio programs and social media outlets, AWR wants to make sure these contacts don't fall through the cracks, but will serve as the beginning of their spiritual journey. After successful efforts in Africa, the Philippines, and Japan, AWR leadership saw the need for this center to be established to cater to the growing needs of its listeners.
A student from an Adventist school in New South Wales has been recognized by the Irwin family as Wildlife Warrior of the Year.
Molly Henry, who attends Central Coast Adventist School, has been invited to the Steve Irwin Gala dinner in Brisbane, Australia. At the gala, she will receive the award from Australia Zoo and the Steve Irwin Foundation for her conservation projects and efforts.
The team at Australia Zoo told Molly's mom, Melinda, that Terry, Bindi, and Robert Irwin, who will present the award, personally picked Molly as a standout individual among the wildlife warrior group.
Molly joined the Australia Zoo Wildlife Warriors in March of this year and has been full steam ahead ever since, organizing various fundraising opportunities. She also opted out of birthday presents, instead requesting that friends and family make donations to the Wildlife Warriors Fund.
Molly participates in many conservation projects and has been involved in planting native trees in the local area to help the yellow-bellied gliders and swift parrots. Each year, she makes pouches for the baby animals at the Australian Reptile Park and has donated more than 50 pouches so far.
Molly's commitment and dedication to the environment has significantly changed the way her family lives. They have stopped using single-use plastic products and now have eco-friendly options like stainless steel straws, keep cups, and beeswax wraps.
Molly even collects old mobile phones from family and friends and recycles them to help save gorillas by stopping the mining for the minerals used in the manufacturing process that destroys their habitats.
Molly's dedication to caring for the environment and being a champion for the plight of wildlife is something she takes seriously, and she regularly encourages her friends to do the same.
Coming up, the Adventist Church in the Trans-European Division reflects on the end of World War I.
But up next, a new scholarship from ADRA will help more young people go on its mission trips.
Welcome back. The Adventist Development and Relief Agency, or ADRA's global volunteer program, ADRA Connections, is launching a new service scholarship that will allow thousands of young people in the U.S. to be more active through volunteerism.
ADRA Connections expects to provide 350 to 400 scholarships each year from 2019 to 2023 in order to help cover some of the costs related to volunteer services overseas. Scholarships will range from approximately $500 all the way to $1,200 US dollars, depending on the type of the project and the country where the project is taking place.
ADRA International, which oversees ADRA Connections and the scholarship program, is a global nonprofit organization and the humanitarian arm of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It carries out projects around the world, ensuring that initiatives are sustainable and include community support and participation.
The ADRA Connections Scholarship Program aims to counter an ongoing decline in volunteerism among young adults. Adam Warmack, who heads up ADRA Connections, says, "Given the current decline in volunteerism, we want to re-energize young people and focus their interest in service. This will not only impact the lives of the people they serve, but will also transform the way they see the world around them."
To apply for this scholarship, visit adraconnections.org/scholarships.
Seventh-day Adventist church members in Port Vila, Vanuatu are celebrating after the opening of a new multi-purpose building. South Pacific Division President Glenn Townend officially opened the Ipauto Adventist Multi-Purpose Center on November 2. He was joined by the president of the Adventist Church in the Trans-Pacific, Mavene Kofananga, president of the Adventist Church in Vanuatu, Nos Terry Malalang, and more than 3,000 church members. The project, which was started in August of 2015, was completed late last year and is now the largest building in Vanuatu. And church leaders are hoping it will become a center of influence. The Multipurpose Hall project was initiated to address discipleship needs and to provide urgently needed seating capacity for the growing urban areas of the Pacific. Malalang says it was ideal to be built in Port Vila as a gathering place for all the church activities and programs, but the Vanuatu government is also looking at opportunities to use the hall as a future evacuation center for natural disasters. Although the center was only open last weekend, it is already booked until the end of this year from within the church and from the local community.
Young finalists representing Inter-America's 24 major church territories will compete one last time during the last Bible competition of the year on December 1. Finalists will travel to Belize to test their knowledge of the books of Matthew and Mark and chapters 6 through 15 of Ellen G. White's book, The Desire of Ages. The event is the 15th annual territory-wide initiative in which thousands of young people from Seventh-day Adventist churches across the Inter-American Division dig deep into assigned Bible books and readings in an effort to enrich their spiritual life, church leaders said. Thousands of young people finished regional competitions from the church, district, conference, mission, and union levels by September through October. Coined as Bible Connection, formerly Inter-America's Bible Boom, the competition will see finalists answer some 50 multiple-choice questions using a new computer software method this year.
Last week, the world looked back 100 years to Armistice Day 1918 and the end of World War I. Yet reflecting and looking forward provides a paradox for Seventh-day Adventist Christians.
As Christians, we recognize that war and rumors of war are one of the signs of the end of the age. Whether World War I, Syria, or Yemen, we still struggle with the horror of man's inhumanity to man. We long for the time when war will be no more, for the great controversy between Christ and Satan will be over, when God, as promised in Revelation 21, will make all things new.
Recently, the communication director from the British Union, Richard Daly, sat down with Victor Holbert, who serves as the communication and media director for the Trans-European Division, to talk about how Adventists relate to war. Here's part of their interview.
Well, Victor, it's good to be here in this peace garden, and as we sit here, we're sitting at a time when, just this week, the world will look back to the end of World War I and Armistice Day and everything that surrounds that. What is your stance on that, on how Adventists should respond to this event?
Well, Richard, you can see I'm actually wearing the poppy today because although I'm a pacifist, and traditionally and certainly during World War I, Seventh-day Adventists in the United Kingdom were pacifist, I think we still have to think of those very brave soldiers who went and fought for king and country, as it was said, for what they believed was right, and gave their lives. They were heroes, and I think we have to remember the courageous sacrifice they made, even though when I look at the history of World War I, and in fact of most other wars, they only end when people eventually sit around a table and discuss, and some kind of peace eventually comes. Why that can't happen in the beginning. And that's the reason that while I'm here and while I'm delighted to be sitting in a peace garden, my emphasis has to be far more on peace, grateful that war that supposedly was to end all wars should come to an end, but recognizing that was a pipe dream, that there has been war every single year since then till now, and millions of people have died as a result
Absolutely.
of it.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about this peace garden in which we're in, but going back to those pacifists, and there was about 130 British Adventists who were conscientious objectors. How should we celebrate their stance that they took?
I think that they were just as courageous as the men who went to the front and fought in the trenches, because they had to stand against incredible opposition. You know, if you were not, as a young man, wearing a military uniform, you were considered to be a coward. You would have people, girls, coming up to you in the street, giving you a white feather. You would be taunted, you would be bullied. And then these young men made the statement, we're not going to fight, we're not going to bear arms. And a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them ended up in prison, ended up with a severe amount of bullying and harassment, and yet they believed that thou shalt not kill was a real principle that they should live by. They equally believed, and it's very interesting when you go through and look at the tribunals that they attended and the reasons that they give for not being willing to fight, and one of their principal reasons was, this is clearly a sign of the end of the age. You know, this is Matthew 24, this is Luke 21, and how can I be going and killing people when I really need to be telling them Jesus Christ is coming again soon? And I think that principle, okay, 100 years old, I think that's still a principle that's very valid for us today, that we've got a message of hope to give. And these guys, you know, Some of them spend time in prison, and in prison they're witnessing. Some of them are working in non-combatant forces, and in there they're seeking opportunities to share their faith. Some of them are working in what's called works of national importance, so they were out in agriculture or on the land somewhere. And again, they were finding opportunities to be able to share their faith. They were passionate for what they believed in, but they were also passionate for peace, even in those terrible times.
You mentioned that since World War I, almost every day there's been some aspect of war since then, and it causes us to wonder, what are we really celebrating in the sense that World War I has ended, but we still see wars today. But we know the importance of what happened at the end of World War I. But what, in terms of the message that we have as Adventists of hope and the soon coming of Christ, does this give to those who are seeking to know more about Christ?
Jesus offered peace. When you read in the Gospel of John, he offered peace to his disciples just before he was going to be betrayed, just before he was going to go through a mockery of several trials, just before he was going to die on a cross. And peace for him didn't necessarily mean the end of anything negative happening in your life. And down through history, we've seen that with God's people. And we live in a world that, is a result of sin coming in, things having gone wrong. And so, yes, I'm opposed to war, and the research I've done on conscientious objectors and World War I, World War II has actually convinced me that war is never a solution. Even when it's called a last resort, it's still never the best solution. But Jesus offers us hope. Jesus tells us, Luke 21 verse 28 says, "When these things begin to happen, then lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh." And to me, that means that you and I, as people of faith, people of hope, when terrible things are going on around us, and we are challenged, we're challenged at the moment by knife crime in London. We're challenged by Syria and by the Congo and the Yemen and different things going on, and it's difficult, but the Bible promises you've got hope because of what Jesus has done, because of what Jesus promises. And that to me is really positive. That's why I can, still have a smile on my face in times like this.
If you would like to watch the full interview with Richard and Victor, visit tedadventist.org.
Coming up, Emily is here to talk about World Toilet Day.
But up next, Adventist Mission shares a story about an organic farm in Moldova.
We may look, pray, read, think, worship, sing, and share differently, but we all look forward to the Sabbath. And we all look forward to the future when Jesus will come again. With this message in mind, we arrived at a core component for a new identity system: the creation grid, a simple 7-column structure for layout. The grid is a reference both to the prophetic timeline as well as to the creation week that culminated in the 7th-day Sabbath. Regardless of what or where you are designing, you can always find information to help you communicate that we are all Seventh-day Adventists.
Welcome back.
When you mingle and meet people's needs, amazing things can happen.
Watch to see how an organic farm is impacting a community in Moldova.
Adventist Mission has more.
Organic farming is a key industry in Moldova. If you were to drive through the country, you would notice farms covering vast stretches of the landscape. This farm in particular is owned and operated by the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Yuri and his wife are in charge of running the farm. Yuri studied agriculture and now wants to use his knowledge as a way of reaching people for Jesus. They are starting a new agricultural school, and they hope to attract people from the local community who are interested in learning organic farming skills.
We are serving the needs of the people. Most of the people here have land, but don't know how to grow. We want to educate people to be self-sufficient.
While a lot of the planting is done in the fields, gardening and greenhouses allows them to grow year-round, even in the coldest winter. Through this program, people are connecting with Adventists in this region.
We realized that Jesus spoke about agriculture a lot in his parables. We found that when we are teaching people to grow these plants, we can't avoid talking about Jesus as we work.
The farm is part of a large piece of land owned by the Adventist Church. This site was created during the Soviet Union as a recreational area for the people who worked in the nearby city. It was an oasis for people to escape the stress of working and the challenges of daily life. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, this property was abandoned and it seemed to be forgotten. For years, Adventists in Moldova struggled to find a place to hold camp meetings, retreats, children's events, and training programs. Plans were always determined by weather and the availability of rented buildings. So when they had the opportunity to buy this property, they did. Some of the original structure still stands, but a lot of work has been put into this building to make it safe and usable. The lower floors have been finished, but the upper floors are still under construction. Church members dream of the day when they can use this building to meet together. The youth want to hold fellowship events, but usually run into problems with housing arrangements. Currently, they sleep in tents on the property, but it rains so often they are forced to change their plans or endure the harsh weather.
We are standing on the site where the rooms will be built for the youth and children. Before, we had to worry about rain and weather. We look forward to the day when we have better sleeping arrangements, and the offerings will help to construct this.
This building's purpose is mission. Before, it was for rest and relaxation. We still want to use this place for people to come rest, but we also want them to meet and know God here.
This quarter, a portion of your 13 Sabbath offerings will help finish the living space for the dormitory area of this building. The youth will be able to schedule events with certainty. They will be able to host missionary trainings, health and educational programs, and other events to invite the community to get to know the local Adventist. Programs like these will foster a sense of missionary service.
Moldova is one of the smallest countries from the former Soviet Union. Maybe people around the world have never even heard of it. But we are so happy that the whole world church will be involved in this project. We are very happy that people will pray and help accomplish our goal this 13th Sabbath. It is also a challenge and responsibility for us to make it function because you are putting your faith in our work.
Please pray that God will allow the ministry in Moldova to grow. Thank you for supporting projects like these through your mission offerings.
You can watch this and other mission stories online by visiting AdventistMission.org, then click on videos at the top.
Did you know that more people in the world have cell phones than have access to toilets?
This week, Emily Mastrapa shares about World Toilet Day and how you can get involved to help with this global crisis.
Today, 4.5 billion people, that's 60% of the global population, live without a household toilet that safely disposes of their waste. For these people, sanitation systems are either non-existent or ineffective, so progress in health and child survival is seriously undermined. And 1 in 5 schools have no toilet facilities at all. Toilets save lives because human waste spreads killer diseases. World Toilet Day on November 19 is about taking action to ensure that everyone has a safe toilet by 2030. This year's theme is Toilets and Nature. We should build toilets and sanitation systems that work in harmony with our environment. Here's what you can do to get involved and to help spread the word. Visit worldtoiletday.info to learn more about this day and what it means. They have an event map where you can see what events are happening globally. You can set up an event or join one that's happening near you. You can also find posters, logos, and graphics to share on social media. Don't forget to use the hashtag World Toilet Day to share how you're promoting this day and to see what others are doing. And make sure that you head to adra.org to see how they are helping people around the world with health and sanitation.
And finally, for today's episode, let's turn to David Trim for a look at Adventist history.
This week, we hear about the life and service of Albert Floyd Tarr.
Welcome to This Week in Adventist History. On November 11, 1896, Albert Floyd Tarr was born in South Africa. Floyd Tarr, as he was known, served the denomination for more than 50 years, initially as a pastor in his homeland, before moving into administration. He spent 24 years at the South African Union Conference headquarters, first as Secretary-Treasurer, then as President. After briefly serving as Secretary of the South African Division, Floyd and his wife Edna bravely accepted a call to mission service in India when he was in his late 40s. He spent 9 years as Secretary-Treasurer of the Southern Asia Division, but then at the 1950 General Conference session, he was elected President of the Northern European Division, and you see him here in a photograph taken in the early 1950s. Tarr served 3 terms, 12 years in that position, and was a much-loved figure in the Northern European Division. Finally, at age 66, he was called to the World Headquarters, where he spent 4 years as Associate Secretary of the General Conference. Floyd Tarr retired at age 70 and died in Southern California in 1980, aged 84. On November 12, 1914, Walter Bond passed away in Baeza, Spain. In 1902, aged just 23, Walter and his wife Leola accepted a call to mission service in Europe. In June 1903, they landed in Barcelona. They were, as a colleague later recalled, among the first of our workers to enter Spain. That October, Walter and Leola established a boys' school in Sabadell. In 1905, Walter was appointed superintendent of the Spanish mission, a position he held for the rest of his life. Later, one of his brothers, Frank Bond, also became a missionary in Spain. In the late summer and autumn of 1914, Walter held evangelistic meetings in Baeza, but contracted peritonitis. It was this that killed him aged only 35. 104 years later, the Adventist Church in Spain is still small and still needs your help and your prayers. That was This Week in Adventist History.
Thanks for watching ANN. Join us next week for more news from the headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
We love to hear from you. Send us your feedback and tell us how your church is making a difference in its community.
Be sure to capture plenty of video footage and photos, then write up a summary of the event's important details. And feel free to send full video reports as well.
All right, you can always reach us by sending an email to annvideo11@gmail.com.
Before we say goodbye, here's some good news from the book of Acts, chapter 20, verse 24.
The passage says, "But nothing, not even my life, is more important than completing my mission. This is nothing other than the ministry I received from the Lord Jesus to testify about the good news of God's grace."
That's our program for this week. And remember, you can always visit news.adventist.org for daily news and videos. Until next time, God bless.
Take care.